Now, thank you, everyone. This is the October 23rd Los Osos Community Advisory Council meeting. We're going to get started here right away. We will do a call to order and roll call. People keep coming in.
Deborah, I can admit people. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, so I can concentrate. Let's do roll call. District 1. Andrea?
Present.
David?
Here.
Jim? Salio?
Here.
Gary Katayama? I don't see Gary. Brad Spar? Nope. Yes, I'm here. John Lynn?
Here he is.
Yes, he is. Jim Stanfield?
Yes.
And Molly Brown?
Here.
Awesome. Okay, chairperson announcements. There is going to be a presentation. I'm going to pull this up for you all next week on the 29th, Wednesday the 29th at the Morro Bay Vets Hall. Get that out of the way. This has to do with the Local Roads First initiative. This is a half-cent sales tax that would go on the ballot in November of 2026 to support our local roads. This is very interesting information. If you can attend, I urge you to attend. They will explain to you how the money collected will be apportioned out, and some money will go to unincorporated areas like Los Osos, and it will be divvied up according to population. And guess what? Los Osos is the 7th largest community in the entire county. And so that means we would get significant funding for our local roads if this tax were to pass. So if you want to know more about that, go to the workshop. And if you can't go to the workshop, you can go to the website, which is localroadsfirst.com, and all that information will be available there. Any questions about that?
Hey, Deborah, I just finished filling out a survey
Oh,
for the tax. I guess it wasn't sent to everybody. I guess I was one of the lucky ones that got to fill out the survey, but I would recommend anybody who does get that email. I don't think it's going to be up for too much longer as that survey, so it'd be a good thing to do to reply to that if you get it.
excellent. Okay, good advice. Thank you, Rich. All right, I'm going to stop that. And I'm going to talk about the community workshop for the South Bay Boulevard Morro Bay Estuary Climate Resiliency in my committee report. So we won't do that now. We'll move on to council member announcements. Do any of the council members have an announcement they would like to make? I don't see.
think the
Jim,
cat does.
Jim, is your cat wanting to make an announcement?
My cat is a pain in the butt, but he has a mind of its own.
As cats should always have a mind of their own. Okay, so moving on to county and local reports. I don't see the sheriff tonight, and I do not see the highway patrol. This is the second month that they have not been here. I can only assume that they're very busy and they were not available to come tonight. The Basin Management Committee report, that's actually on the agenda, so we will go over, we will skip that and hear from Dan Heimel on the agenda. And so county staff report, Mason's here, but Mason, I don't think you have anything for us tonight, do you?
No, I do not. Good
Okay.
evening. It's good to see all you guys. Mason Denning, Slow County Planning and Building. Thank you, Miss Howe. So you're well aware, I don't have any items tonight and there's no land use on the agenda, but I'm available for questions and I'm going to stick around for the BMC report in case there's any questions for planning related to maybe how that interfaces.
I very much appreciate that, Mason. Andrea, you had a question?
Yeah. Hey, Mason, I have a quick question. Do you have any sort of update you can share with what's going on with at the Celia's site? The larger site, not the restaurant to speak of
Yeah,
directly?
just to clarify, when we say larger site, maybe the rear of the parcel.
Bingo, the event area that's uneventful so far.
Yeah, there was that one's got a little bit of a history. I think a year or two ago we probably saw the article in the Tribune that talked about like an event space going in there, and nothing really materialized from our end in the department. There was a complaint, there was a code complaint from a member of the community just related to some construction that was ongoing, some grading, and I think they put in some pavers and whatnot. My understanding is that code case has been closed and they haven't expanded any operations. They've essentially done maintenance and weed management in that back area. I don't believe they're having any events or anything in the public. We don't currently have an application in for any proposed expansion or development. They have an architect and a land use agent that we've been working with, just answering questions about what they can do with the property, but there's no current application or proposed development as it stands.
Just a quick follow-up, if I may. If they were to indicate that they wanted to do concerts or big events, and big, it's Los Osos, so like 50 plus, would that be something that would need to be permitted, or they could just do that, or can you make that call?
Yeah, I think it really depends on their scope, and that's been one of the difficult things to address with the property owners is they're trying to figure out what's feasible for them, right? So to answer your question, they could have someone like on a guitar internal to the restaurant, like incidental, not charging ticket prices. There's just a little background music to the restaurant, and they could do that as it is. But I think what you're really getting at is if they will expand and use that space. And to answer that question, they would likely need a discretionary permit that would come through every other similar to every other discretionary entitlement to your land use committee and then to your general committee. We've been talking with them about what it would take to expand that site, and it seems like almost every pathway is an intensification of use, which would necessitate that use permit and come before your committee.
Okay, thanks, Mason. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any hands.
Here's
so
a
we'll
hand.
move on.
John.
Oh, John, you have a hand.
Yes, yes, I do have one. Is there anything new at the empty drugstore space in Los Osos in the way of applications to um, do tenant improvements or any kind of application that Mason can tell us about?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't get every Los Osos application that comes in, and I won't explain how they're divvied up, but typically we're made aware when one comes in. So I'm not aware of one.
Okay.
If it was going to be a simple tenant improvement, it may not require something that I would have to be aware of. If it's all internal, there's no expansion. It's very similar to what's been there. They can come to the building department and kind of make those changes internally and start operation with a zoning clearance and what we would call the business license under our code without any additional input. Now, if they were intensifying their use there, and to give you guys an example of that, when Ale House was formerly the office building or like that professional, and then they switched to kind of that outdoor venue with the brewery, something like that is what would trigger my review and review to you guys. So I'm not aware of an application specifically. And if one comes in that is intensification, same thing as Celia's, it would come to the committee.
Thank you.
All right. Good questions from the council. All right, thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any hands. Okay, so let's move on to Supervisor Gibson. I know he's here somewhere.
Somewhere. He's
There you are.
an undisclosed location in Cayucas, which actually narrows it down pretty well. Anyway, pleasure as always to be with you this evening. As I was thinking through a number of possibilities, there aren't any really Los Osos specific issues that have had much action in recent weeks. Certainly happy to answer questions on any that you may have in your mind. There are some board actions that have been taken to reorganize the way our administration works, shifting from a model that was titled as a county administrative officer. You may have heard us talk about the CAO, to a model that is headed by a county executive officer, or CEO. That's a model used in other counties. 58 counties have both models in place. Ours has been a CAO since our founding. The actual details of substantively what that means are yet to be defined, but the thought is that that we would have a tighter organization that would translate board strategic vision into action on programs and projects. And that is an all hands kind of thing, starting with the board and our ability to develop strategic vision, and then working through a management structure that makes it possible to execute on that. So more to come on that. Yesterday, we also took action on a regional housing incentives program aimed at seeing if we can't develop more multifamily, or let's just call it apartment style dwelling units. My own thought is that it is a step. It's a very small step in the right direction, in that it is a means of raising funds for investment with nonprofit housing developers. But it falls far short of the amount that those developers have told us they need to actually make a dent in our efforts to provide housing that's truly affordable to lower income households. So more to come on that as well. As we head toward the end of the year, we will be talking about housing strategies. I did thank you, Madam Chair, for bringing forward that workshop on the 29th about SLOCOG. Let me fill in just a little bit on that. It is a half-cent sales tax measure. You may remember one was on the ballot in 2016 and was narrowly defeated. A couple of bad things happened in 2016, but the defeat of Measure J was the one that held local, was directly local. That half-cent sales tax for transportation and transit-related issues, if passed, would cause the county to be considered what's called a self-help county. And that's important in the greater state level system by which transportation and transit investments are made, because that status of self-help, of us raising local funds to contribute to projects both in individual communities and region-wide, allows us to leverage large quantities of state dollars into our county. The failure of Measure J in 2016 has cost us probably upwards of $100 million or more in state funding we could otherwise have brought into the county. And so SLOCOG, our Council of Governments, is very interested. And just one little statistic, about 90% of the population of the state of California lives in a self-help county. So we are distinctly an outlier here. The survey that Mr. Hubbard referenced, and one of the purposes of the meeting, beyond explaining how this all works, is also to hear from the community about what kinds of projects the community is interested in. And the distribution of the funds won't be set until a specific measure is put before the board of the Council of Governments for us to approve going to the ballot for voter approval. So thoughts about how that should fairly be constructed are welcome right now, and also the vision of the community as to what kinds of projects this sells. What we've found is that when these kinds of measures are tailored to the needs of community, not surprisingly, they have a greater chance of passage. You know, that's not rocket surgery, as a friend of mine is prone to say. So that's what that meeting is about. I will be there. I look forward to the conversation, and we can go from there. And then just to wrap up my segment of the meeting, let me yield the floor to my esteemed Chief of Staff, Mr. Blake Fixler, who has just a little bit of news that he'd like to convey to you.
Good evening, everyone. My major announcement is that I have taken a promotional opportunity to a different department, still staying within the county. It comes a little sooner than the expiration of Bruce's term, so I'm afraid I will be leaving a little bit earlier than I think we had otherwise anticipated. I technically start next month, but I will be hanging on through the end of this calendar year to make sure that stuff is still getting done. So still contact me as normal. We're going to work on our transition plan to my successor, but it's been a pleasure working with you all these last 7 years. I've really enjoyed my time. I've really appreciated seeing LOCAC grow and change, and wish you all the best and thank you for everything that you do for your community, and stay in touch.
Thank you, Blake.
Congratulations, Blake.
Yeah. Let me.
Yeah. Can you tell us what department you're going to?
State secret. No, of course. It's I'm going to the Human Resources Department.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
He's getting in on the ground floor of a major new software installation that's really going to be at the heart of the county operation. I can tell you, as challenging as it will be for me personally, let's talk about me for a while, and you, to lose this fine gentleman in service to the 2nd District. Blake and I have actually talked about this for a couple of years now, realizing that at some point, for one reason or another, I won't be the District 2 supervisor, and he has a long and I'm sure distinguished career ahead at the county. And so I'm just thrilled that he's gotten this opportunity. It provides a great path for his many years of service to come. So we're excited about that. In the interim, I can let you know that at least on a temporary basis and starting at halftime, we will bring in Ms. Sherry McKee Gibson, who some of you may be familiar with as Blake's predecessor. Sherry is actually excited in the other room, actually working on her resume, and getting ready to train with Blake to get caught up on what's happened in the nearly 7 years since she retired. So we will strive for the same high level of service. It will be a challenge with Mr. Fixler elsewhere in the building, but we're going to do the best we can. And again, really proud of Blake and of course, so appreciative of all the service he's rendered. So that's my report. Happy to go with questions.
Yeah, we have a couple questions. I see, Jim, your hand is up.
Yeah, congratulations, Blake. I'm glad you're moving on and getting the chance to get a promotion, and keep promoting. That's the key. Think of defined benefit retirement.
You don't know anything about that, do you, Jim?
Yes. So Bruce, at the Board of Supervisors meeting, I saw the chambers were packed with slow ambulance.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How is that going? I understand that the county's looking at going out with an RFP. It hasn't been done for a while.
Yeah.
How, if any, is it going to would it impact EMT services in Los Osos?
Well, that is to be determined, and is actually a key element of why we're going out for the RFP. There has never been a request for proposals. I pointed out at the meeting that San Luis Ambulance has held a public contract with the county for ambulance service for longer than I have been alive, which to some folks is a staggering amount of time. Eons were terms that were passed. So they've never been subjected to it. They operate under a model. They're grandfathered in without the necessity of a competitive process. But Mayor Hammond of Paso Robles, in the first public comment of 2 hours of public comment, hit it right on the head. They've been doing this for decades, not tested by competitive process. I hope they bid on this process. I think they could be certainly competitive. We've got to coordinate and there is some talk among the cities and some of the special districts about more modern systems of care that provide, coverage that can float and be more responsive. So all of that to be determined. The current contract is extended through the middle of 2026 and might have to be extended a little further, but by 2027, we expect to have whatever the successful proposer is. And it's not a low bid contract. This is a proposal and a contract that gets negotiated on a whole bunch of different terms. We hope to have that settled and the new system operating as of 2027.
Andrea, I see your hand is up.
I always get a little bit worried when Jim Salio and I are asking similar questions, but Bruce, I listened a little bit to that issue yesterday, and my question is, the RFP now is going to go to the state first, then comes back to the Board of Soups for review, and then finally goes out. Do you have a timeline on that?
Yeah, like I say, I think that I'd have to look back at the staff report. I can do that if you want the exact date, but it's in the staff report.
Okay.
It should go out. We should get it back from the state sometime early next year. And the regulation of ambulance service, of emergency response services like that, is really complex and is subject to state statute, state emergency services authorities, and our local emergency services agency, which is a sub part of the county government. So it has been crafted. It's going for approval at the state. When it comes back, I think it gets issued promptly at that point.
Perfect.
I don't know that the board has another decision to make on that.
Thank you, and I applaud the board for going out to RFP just because that's the process that needs to happen. Blake, we're going to miss you. I'm waiting for you to go to the other side and be an elected official, but I guess that's going to be a few years off.
And he's smarter than that.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Molly, you have your hand up.
Okay. So Blake, congratulations. I hope the job will be as interesting and complex as this one, but I have a feeling it might feel a little calm compared to your day-to-day work on so many different issues. But thank you for your hard work, and I wish you all the best. For Supervisor Gibson, so I just had a question on that RFP. So are all the different local county fire agencies, CAL FIRE and all the cities, are they heavily involved in this, like putting in their comments? Yeah. Okay, great.
Absolutely. They are part of our emergency services, emergency medical services agency, EMSA. They have input there. There is a particular model that has a particular kind of coordination between cities and the county, which has been put forward in other counties. Again, I'm not deep in the weeds of the details, but yes, there will be a lot of conversation between cities, fire departments, and the county. On this,
because they're the ones who really interact with San Luis Ambulance, and you know, they know whatever's good or bad, or the quality of the service. They know.
They were very plain that this is an antiquated system. There's no doubt San Luis Ambulance employees render extraordinary service. They are dedicated professionals. But the question really is the system. It is absolutely, it just surprises me there's even a question that we should go to RFP. We have tried to get this. I certainly have been eager to see this for the entirety of my time in office, and it's just been a slog. And so I'm really happy that we squeaked that one over the finish line. Over that line on a close vote, but there it is. So
okay, thank you.
All right, do we have any more questions for Supervisor Gibson or for Blake? I don't see anyone. All right. Well, Blake, I will miss you. And the only thing I will need now is Sherry's phone number so I can put it in my, into my contact list for speed dial, just like I have you. And best of luck, Blake. I know you will shine in your new role at Human Resources.
Thank you. I'm not gone just yet, so we'll make sure that the communication goes out of exactly timing and how best to get a hold. And we're actually both going to be kind of working together through the end of the calendar year. So there'll be a good handoff period.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now let's go to the CSD report. We have Rich Hubbard to represent the CSD tonight.
Yes, that would be me. Ron Munns graciously gave me some talking points here. I was not at the last CSD meeting, so I'm pretty much going to read this verbatim. And a lot of the caveats on these things are, if you have any questions, ask Ron Munns. So I know he's here. I see his thing there. So I will go with that. Anyways, first item is the water resiliency intertie pipeline project. And this happened actually in September at our September 4th CSD meeting where we approved the contract with Water Systems Consulting to provide to design the service. The contract is about $854,000. It'll take about a year to complete the work, and district staff is actively working to find outside funding for the construction phase of the project, which is estimated to be over $10 million. And we pretty much said that this project is an integral part of the plan to provide water resiliency to the community for the community water supply. Again, if you have any questions on the design or the overall project, contact Ron Munns at the district office, please, or maybe ask him tonight. Let me see, the LAFCO Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study. At the September LAFCO meeting, commissioners voted unanimously to adopt the district's MSR. Commissioners were interested in the water situation in Los Osos and very complimentary of the district's financial position. The study provides details on the community's demographics, review of the present and planned land uses, governance, authorized services, and financial position. If interested, you can find the document on the CSD's website. And lastly, and definitely not leastly, costs to provide fire protection and emergency medical services to the community have escalated dramatically over the past 3 years, mostly due to salary and benefit increases given to CAL FIRE. The CSD is analyzing the impacts of these increases and looking at options to see if we can better control the rising costs in the future. One option that seems to be getting some headway is considering a partnership with the city of Morro Bay. At the October board meeting, we authorized the general manager to send a letter of interest to the Morro Bay City Council. The City Council agreed with their staff recommendation to engage with the CSD on the issue, so more information will be provided as information is available. Unfortunately, all the solutions being analyzed point to a need to increase the special fire tax. And again, if you have questions, contact Ron Munns at the district office if you need more information on this issue. And that's all I have here. So there you have
Okay.
it.
Well, thank you, Rich.
Sure.
Do we have questions for Ron Munns, since he happens to be here? Or if you would like, you can always contact him at the district office. But I don't see any hands, so it doesn't seem like there are any questions about that report.
I got one.
I see a hand.
Oh, there's a hand. Okay.
It's big.
John, what is your
A
question?
question for Ron, in terms of seeking money for the pipeline project, to what degree are we working on Prop 4 state funding that is that is being discussed a lot right now across the state, in terms of helping us fund this project?
Well, that's my primary target right now. In fact, I'm looking to engage outside help to write a proposal for that grant. I have to say, we're still in the running for some federal money, maybe. So that's also something we're looking at, or I'm looking at. And I've been looking at outside funding in terms of loans, low interest, long-term loans as well. So I'm fairly optimistic within the next year or two, we'll be able to get some outside funding to lower that $10 million+ project.
I noticed the dollar amount got raised from earlier estimates, or maybe the earlier estimates weren't firm yet.
Well, you have to understand, in the utility world, especially these types of projects, inflation is not what CPI is, consumer price index. You know, it's been going up like 5+% a year. And so what you're seeing is, you know, I've been working on this project for probably about 4 years now. Some of the preliminary numbers were probably 3 years old at least. So it's really the inflationary thing you're starting to see on a project of this size.
Yeah. Thanks for your efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah, just the pipeline. I know, Ron, that, the price of pipeline, anything that involves pipes or metals or whatever with the current economic state of tariffs and so forth can really create inflation on projects like this. So the sooner we get it done, the better.
Yes.
Molly, I see your hand is up.
Okay, yeah, I think that, Rich, when you were talking, a little bit of it got cut off on my computer. When you were talking about talking with the City of Morro Bay Fire Department, it's the idea that maybe there would be some combination or hiring them or something. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, basically we're trying to get them to basically take over the fire aspect of Los Osos, and that doesn't mean that they would just be in Morro Bay and then coming over here from Morro Bay. They would actually man the station in Los Osos.
Okay, that's what I thought you were probably saying. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, don't see anything. So, Jim Stanfield, your report for the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, yes. A big event coming up Sunday, 46th annual Oktoberfest. And activities begin about 9 o'clock. The fun run starts. Kiwanis will have a pancake breakfast at that hour. Stage opens up about 10 o'clock. We have several community activities. And the first band comes on at noon. And then we have costume contests about 2 o'clock. And then our last band comes on at 3:15. And that's the Santa Cruz Family Band. And they are really exceptional band. I'll be there for that, if nothing else. Anyway, it should be a fun day. A car show from 9 to 2. Vendors from 9 to 5. Kids zone from 12 to 4. And the chamber will have a vendor booth also for information. Anyway, it'll be a busy day. Day will start about 6 a.m.
Yeah, it will be a busy day. The Sunnyside Park Citizens Coalition will have a table there collecting signatures for the petition to put Sunnyside Park Initiative on the ballot for June 2026. I'll be there for that. And I think it's going to be a fun day, hoping for nice weather.
Yeah. Our office hours continue to be 10 to 2, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Anybody wants to stop by, I'm there from 10 to 12 on Tuesday. Stop by and chat.
You need a sign on your office, Jim. I was there the
I
other
know.
day and I didn't know which door to go to.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. But the
Need a
door
little
is on
sign.
Bush Avenue. You think it ought to be on Los Osos Valley Art. It's not.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Stanfield on the chamber report? Don't see any questions. We don't have anything on our consent agenda tonight, so we'll move on to the regular agenda. Dan Heimel is here from the BMC, and I want to talk just a moment to introduce Mr. Heimel. He actually runs his own consulting firm, and he works for the BMC. He does not work for the county. And the BMC does not work for the county, and so he comes here. He doesn't get paid to come here and speak to us, but he does here because he knows he's giving us very important information, especially tonight. He has a lot to share with us. So, Dan, I want to thank you for coming tonight and taking time out of your evening. And I have made you co-host so that you can share your screen and run through some of this important information. The BMC meetings being in the afternoon are not necessarily the most convenient for people, so we're hoping by having you come tonight, we're going to reach a larger audience. Of course, our meetings are recorded, and people can always go back and see them at another time. So I think we're ready.
Great. Yep. Thanks, Deborah. Members of LOCAC, happy to be here. Yeah, Dan Heimel, Confluence Engineering Solutions, also Executive Director for the Los Osos Basin Management Committee. Deborah's been trying to get me to attend one of these LOCAC meetings for a number of months now. Unfortunately, I've had a conflict, but this time slot opened up, and actually the timing is very fortuitous because the BMC recently took action on two significant items, I think, for the community of Los Osos. And so that's going to be the focus of my presentation tonight, is primarily the items that were acted upon at the recent October 15th BMC meeting. But I'm happy to answer questions on other topics as well. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Is that coming through?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, update presentation on the Los Osos Basin Committee activities. As you saw in the agenda, my presentation is really going to focus on two or arguably three items. There's a recent development of a transient groundwater model that the BMC has been working on for approximately 2 years. There's the water recycling funding study and grant that paid for that model and additional analysis that I'll cover. And then there is a letter that the BMC adopted to the county with respect to the growth management, or the growth rate and the growth management ordinance that was recently adopted. So just real quick overview. I'm assuming most of you here are aware, but just in case you're not, the Los Osos Basin Management Committee was formed as part of the Los Osos Basin adjudication, or more specifically, the 2015 stipulated judgment. It called for the judgment called for the formation of the Basin Management Committee, which consists of 4 parties: the Los Osos Community Services District, Golden State Water Company, S&T Mutual Water Company, and the County of San Luis Obispo. And the BMC, as I'll refer to it, is tasked with overseeing the implementation of the Los Osos Basin Plan, that was also adopted in 2015. And then one of the things you may hear about on a, relatively on a reoccurring basis is development of an annual monitoring report on the status of the basin. And so that's just a brief overview of the Basin Management Committee. Quickly, just about the Los Osos Basin itself, it underlies the community of Los Osos, largely contiguous with our community's boundaries, with the exception that it does extend out into the bay and offshore. And then if you attend one of our meetings or you talk with people about the Los Osos Basin, you'll hear a lot about the different aquifers. We have what we call predominantly the two main aquifers are the upper aquifer and the lower aquifer. Historically, the upper aquifer has experienced nitrate contamination, largely associated with septic discharges. And then the lower aquifer has been impacted by seawater intrusion. And so, both of those issues are critical for the Basin Management Committee. We are monitoring on a semi-annual basis conditions both in the upper and lower aquifer and reporting on those conditions in our annual report. And also we use that data to guide our activities and management actions. So just jumping into the specific topics that I wanted to talk about tonight. The first is the Water Recycling Program Funding Study Grant. The Basin Management Committee, in partnership with the Community Services District, applied for a grant and was awarded a grant by the State Water Resources Control Board in January of 2023. The scope of that grant was to, one, develop a transient groundwater flow model, and then two, to utilize that model to analyze different recycled water and potential supplemental water supply opportunities to improve the sustainability of the Los Osos Basin. And I would also like to acknowledge that the county contributed funding at $150,000 towards this effort. And that was instrumental in helping us generate the match funding that was necessary to obtain the state's grant funding. The transient model is a tool that provides a calibrated dynamic simulation of the groundwater basin. So it allows us to model and predict what future groundwater levels and water quality may occur within the Los Osos Basin. And it's intended to be utilized by the BMC to assist with our management of this critical resource. And it's an improvement over our previous groundwater model, or what we call the steady state model, is in that it allows us to better predict the impacts of extended droughts, variable hydrology or rainfall periods, and it also incorporates new information that we've obtained about the structure of the Los Osos Basin. So depth, layering, and other information that we previously did not have during the development of the steady state model. Through the development of the transient model, the BMC solicited a peer review hydrogeologist. Additionally, the county had their own peer review hydrogeologist. So this model was developed under the oversight of not only the Basin Management Committee and its Technical Advisory Committee, but also two independent hydrogeologists. The model construction and calibration and baseline scenario technical memorandums have been published and presented to the BMC. And so if you're interested in more information about the model, I encourage you to look back at our June, July, August, actually, I think we didn't have a meeting in August, but September and October meetings for that information. And one of the findings of that model was our baseline scenario that indicated that pumping at current average rates and current spatial distribution could cause seawater intrusion to intrude further into the basin. The other thing that the primary reason that we developed the model is to look at different water planning scenarios, or supply alternative scenarios is another term for it. So the model allows us to evaluate sort of baseline conditions, but also what would be the impact of implementing various recycled water or other supplemental water supply projects, so that we can be better informed with how we move forward with our management of the basin and investment in infrastructure projects to help improve sustainability. And through use of the model, we can quantify the benefits that these projects or management actions would have on the basin, and then compare those to the relative costs of those projects, or not even the relative costs, the costs of those projects, so that we can get a relative comparison of what are the most cost-effective and effective projects for the BMC or the purveyors, or to consider as we move forward with management of this critical resource. And we are going to have a presentation on the various projects that were analyzed as part of the water recycling funding study at our upcoming, it's going to be a special meeting on November 12th at 1:30 p.m. at the CSD's offices. So if you're interested in understanding what projects are out there and their cost-benefit ratios, I would encourage you to attend that meeting. One of the critical things that we've utilized the groundwater model for in the near term is to develop an updated estimate of the sustainable yield for the basin. And the sustainable yield for Los Osos is defined as the amount of groundwater that could be extracted on an annual basis without allowing seawater to intrude further than current extents, and no active well pumping more than 250 milligrams per liter of chloride, technically. And so utilizing the transient model, the hydrogeologists, Cleith geologists that led the development of the model, developed the Sustainable Yield 2026 scenario. And that scenario estimates that 2,000 acre-feet could be extracted from the basin with a defined pumping distribution utilizing existing wells without exceeding that criteria of allowing seawater to intrude further than current extents and pumping above 250 milligrams per liter. The table on the right just lays out how that distribution of pumping is set within the sustainable yield scenario by the different pumping categories that we have here in Los Osos. So we have purveyor pumping, community pumping, which represents the cemetery, the community center, which isn't pumping groundwater anymore because it just got connected to recycled water, and then Sea Pines, which also receives recycled water. And then private domestic, those are pumpers that are outside of the water purveyors, so rural residential pumpers with their own wells. And then finally agriculture, which is predominantly in the eastern portion of the basin. Some specific parameters of the sustainable yield scenario is that it includes a 5-year period within the 50-year implementation period that was established for the sustainable yield scenario, where the purveyors complete operational adjustments to transition from the current distribution of pumping to an optimized distribution of pumping that reduces the amount of seawater intrusion or prevents seawater from intruding any further than current extents. And so at the October 15th meeting, the BMC approved the sustainable yield estimate of 2,000 acre-feet for calendar year 2026 based off the sustainable yield scenario referenced previously. This represents a lowering of the sustainable yield for the Los Osos Basin. For the last 3 years, the BMC has adopted a sustainable yield of 2,380 acre feet per year. So it's roughly represents a reduction of approximately 400 acre feet per year from the previous sustainable yield estimate for the basin. And that will be applied for calendar year 2026. And so then the other item to present on, and that was acted upon at the October 15th BMC meeting, was the adoption of a growth rate recommendation letter from the Basin Management Committee to the county with respect to the growth rate for the Los Osos Urban Reserve Line for calendar year 2026. And just a little bit of background, but with the adoption of the community plan and the growth management ordinance in 2024, it outlined a process where annually the Basin Management Committee would prepare a letter that would be sent to the county's groundwater sustainability director and include information on the current status of the basin and the Basin Management Committee's recommendation with respect to the growth rate within Los Osos. Just for reference, the adopted community plan establishes a maximum growth rate of 1% for Los Osos, and then the growth management ordinance establishes a framework for how that growth rate could vary between 0 and 1% based on basin conditions. And so at the October 15th meeting, the BMC considered and approved a recommendation to the county with respect to the 2026 growth rate. And that recommendation was that the Board of Supervisors adopt a calendar year 2026 growth rate of 0% based on the reduced sustainable yield estimate predicted utilizing the newly developed transient model and the uncertainty of impacts from the growth rate approved for 2025 of 0.4%, but had not yet been implemented due to limitations in ability to obtain HCP credits for new development. Additionally, as part of that recommendation, the BMC adopted the following statement that notwithstanding the foregoing, this recommendation should not be construed as a recommendation with respect to the appropriateness of issuing permits in accordance with the provisions of the county's Title 16 Growth Management Ordinance and Title 19 Retrofit to Build Code of Regulations to property owners that were provided notice regarding allocations of new development in calendar year 2025. And so I think it's probably important to note that the county's Title 26 ordinance or the growth management ordinance that outlines, the growth rate and the framework for the growth rate that was adopted by the county and by the county. And then the county's Title 19 or retrofit to build code of regulations currently requires that any new development achieve 2-to-1 water conservation offsets prior to construction. And so those are provisions that were incorporated within the BMC's understanding of the recommendation. And so that sort of concludes my presentation on those items that the BMC took recent action on. And I should note that in that approval, the county abstained from the vote as the land use authority over Los Osos. The purveyors voted 3-0 to submit that recommendation to the county. But I did want to just provide some information about how to get involved in the BMC. Our website is losososbmc.org. There's lots of great information there on when our meetings are and our annual reports and other activities that the BMC is engaged in. And then our meetings are regularly scheduled for the third Wednesday of the month at 1:30 p.m. at the Los Osos Community Services District Boardroom, located on 9th Street, but also are available, or you can participate via Zoom remotely. But to point out that our November meeting will not be on the third Wednesday. It's a special meeting, and it's on, I guess it's the second Wednesday. So just be sure to check before attending. And
Dan, is that the November 12th?
yes, November 12th.
Okay. All right.
And that concludes my presentation.
Questions. All right. Let's see if we have any questions for Dan. Do I see any hands up? Not seeing anything. Oh, here we go. Molly. All right, go ahead. Molly. You need to unmute yourself.
There we go. So Dan, is kind of what you're saying there at the end is that the growth rate for 2025, that the houses that are like still in the works, that they would stay in the works with their permits, but they would be doing that that water offset program. But then for 2026, you got your group is recommending the county go to 0. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think the letter explicitly makes the recommendation that for 2026, the growth rate would go to 0 and, sort of remains somewhat agnostic to what, the county would do with respect to the allocations that were established, the 0.4% for 2025.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Andrea?
Right.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think LOCAC has struggled with houses that have come forward, knowing that there was a report that was not favorable, I guess I'll say. So this is I don't know, I guess I won't call it good news, but it's clarifying news for us as we move forward with projects that come before us. So I appreciate that. Dan, really appreciate you being here and great report. A third of it was over my head, but I really appreciate it, and thank you again for coming. And I think it will help us as we move forward and struggle somewhat with the projects that come forward to us.
You're welcome. Yeah, unfortunately, it's complicated. I try my best
No,
to
you did.
understand it myself. So
You did well.
and then try to explain it to others.
You get a thumbs up.
Jim, you have a question.
Thanks for coming, Dan. I really appreciate taking time out of your very busy schedule and to meet with us. It's been very clarifying. So this question actually is maybe for Dan and Bruce. So this is just a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Is that correct, Dan?
That is correct. I mean, it's the BMC's recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Right. So the Board of Supervisors could say, that's great, BMC, but we're going to set it at 1%, which is what the ordinance allows. Is that correct?
Good.
I don't know, Bruce, if you want to jump in. The growth management ordinance actually prescribes a stepped increase to 1% over the first, I want to say 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So as prescribed in the growth management ordinance, it would go from 0.4 to 0.6 in 2026, and then from 0.6 to 0.8 in 2027. And then at that point, the growth rate would be tied to a framework that's the 5-year average of the basin yield metric. Sorry, it gets more complicated. And the basin yield metric is a ratio of current production in the basin divided by the sustainable yield estimate.
And the reason I asked the question is what keeps politics from getting involved and people saying, no, we want to build in Los Osos and we're going to set it at whatever the maximum is that's allowed by the ordinance.
So let me weigh in on that as a politician. And first and foremost, let me tell you, I've been on a mission for many years to destigmatize the word politics. It is simply the resolution of competing interests among people. It is the business of the people, literally the root of that word. What prevents it what prevents, what limits the actions the board could take for the coming year are the terms of the growth management ordinance as it sits right now, which says that the growth rate shall be set at it's at 0.4% for 25, 0.6% for 26. And as Dan indicated, we were trying to accumulate a set of data that after another couple years, we could look at a rolling out a 5-year average of how much water is being used relative to the sustainable yield of the basin. And if we had to adjust the growth rate, we could do that. The board is, the way I look at it, the board is able to go up to 0.6% by the letter of the ordinance, or it can set it lower than that. I don't think
Right.
there's any justification for setting it higher than that. So let me just explain a couple of things, and it is complicated. It's deeply technical, and the business of translating technical information to public policy is an ongoing challenge. I abstained from that vote because it was a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. So I didn't want to influence what my colleagues on the Basin Management Committee would do at this point. Second point is that the transient model, the question of sustainable yield rests very heavily on predictions of where a certain level of salinity is going to be 40 years in the future, as predicted by this transient model. And this model, and this is, I won't go into these technical details, has some significant limitations in its ability to predict that. In fact, the accuracy of that prediction is not known. But let's just stipulate that right now, under the average pumping production in the basin as a total is 1,830 acre feet per year on average. And what was projected by running the new transient model was that 40 years from now, that this particular contour of salinity that we track would be slightly over a limit line that's there. Another technical thing to know is that the amount of water that can be sustainably extracted from a basin without affecting the seawater intrusion negatively depends not only on the quantity, but where in the basin that water is extracted. And that's a matter of physics. It's a matter of, this is a dynamic system, not just one big bathtub. And again, what I just said is probably an hour's lecture with a whiteboard that I won't tediously bore you with right now. So what happened to find this new sustainable yield, it says, look, if we keep with the current pumping pattern, 1,830 acre feet, which is our average, leads us to a problem 40 years in the future. If we change the pumping pattern to be optimal in some general sense of the word, it won't. 1,830 feet of acre feet of production every year on average will not cause this problem. And in fact, we could pump as much as 2,000 acre feet per year and not cause this problem. So that's wherein the safe yield gets set at 2,000. What I want to point out is that the average production in Los Osos, and again, we have to think in terms of averages because production goes up and down, rainfall goes up and down, but taking average conditions, 1,830 is the production, is if the water purveyors optimize the distribution of their pumping as they have committed to do, the 1,830 feet is not overdrafting the basin. That's an important thing that gets lost in a lot of the public commentary that we get about this topic. So under the current use needs of the community, we are now pumping instead of about 79 or 69% of the yield of the basin, depending on the year, but let's say it's around 70%. We'll be pumping slightly over 90% of the sustainable yield of the basin, but we won't be overdrafting the basin. So that's point number one. Point number two is that any growth in Los Osos right now is required to offset its projected water use by a factor of 2 to 1. That has been studied. That's the so-called Title 19 retrofit to build ordinance. That's been studied, and so from the current set of regulations means that new growth will not add to the production numbers because it's offsetting its growth. To give you a sense of scale, let me just give you a number that will put this in perspective. Two numbers that'll put this in perspective. One number is that a 0.4% growth rate equates to 25 dwelling units. And the expected water use, which again has been verified through a study, for 25 dwelling units is 3.6 acre feet of water per year. If we didn't offset with Title 19 and put in 25 units, that the expected addition would be 3.6 acre feet per year out of an 1,830 acre foot per year use right now. So it's a small amount, and it's in fact, we have a peer review, a technical peer review says that amount of additional load could not be determined what it would do to sea level. Second point is, in the presentation that we'll see on the 12th, we'll see that there are two projects that could add 300 acre feet each, 300 acre feet per year each to the water supply of Los Osos. One of them is the pipeline connection that the CSD is pursuing. And the second is increasing production in the upper aquifer and running it through a denitrification process to get the nitrates out. So those are projects that are within the grasp of the water purveyors within a small number of years. And they would, again, just to give you a sense of scale, 300 acre feet per year for each of those two projects each, and 3.6 acre feet per year for adding 25 houses. So as we work through what the board is going to do about setting growth rate, just want to have you keep those numbers in mind and the fact of the Title 19 retrofit, and we'll work from there.
So, and I appreciate all that, Bruce, but my question really was that the BMC is recommending 0% growth in 2026.
Right.
Is that something that the board will follow, or will the board say, you know, that's great, we appreciate your recommendation, but this is what we want to do?
So in the discussion of that, before I abstained, I pointed out that that the recommendation to go to 0% that the BMC eventually made was not consistent with the facts that they just established in setting the safe yield at 2,000. So my guess is that we'll see what the recommendation is to the board. That is yet to be fully developed, and it will certainly, whatever that recommendation is, my guess is that the recommendation is not going to be a 0% growth rate. And among the reasons for that,
Where was the recommendation from? I thought the BMC was a recommendation of 0%. That's what Dan just said.
The BMC makes the recommendation, but that recommendation goes into our staff consideration of all the factors that lead to setting the growth rate. and that the board is free to accept that recommendation or not. We're not bound by it.
Wow.
Okay, so, Jim, did you have a follow-up question or?
No.
Okay,
No.
all right. Molly, I see your hand. Andrea, I see your hand. I'm gonna ask a, a question. It's a kind of a three-part question, if you'll indulge me, of what I see to be constraining factors. The first constraining factor are the habitat conservation credits. This, of course, is temporary, but it's real. None of the permits that were issued for 2025 have been acted on because those credits are not available. And I know Mason's here, you may or may not know when though we anticipate those credits being available, but it's not that's a constraining factor on building here in Los Osos. Number two, and I'm just going to put all these, I have three of them, and then we can talk about them if you would indulge me. The other is we know the sustainable group is going to sue. They're probably going to sue the county if the county says we're going to continue to, allow growth in the basin. They're probably going to sue. I'm assuming they'll sue the county. Who knows who else they'll sue? They're also going to go to the Coastal Commission, and they're going to ask the Coastal Commission to rethink their approval of the growth rate. And that would be probably one of the biggest constraining factors that I can imagine on growth in Los Osos. So wherever you want to start with any one of those constraining factors, I'd be curious to know where you think this goes, because the county can make their decision, but there are going to be some reactions to that decision that I think could cause all kinds of confusion here for people in Los Osos.
Sure, and we're trying to let me take that on. I think Mason knows a good bit about this, but I've also been directly involved with it for many years. We'll start with the HCP. Right now, it doesn't look in 2025. I don't think we have a single permit of the 25 possible permits is accepted for processing, and we're not going to see any permits issued for 2025. So effectively, the growth rate in 2025 is going to be zero. And indeed, a constraint on that is the availability of HCP credits. The county has actually got a half-time position. I believe it's filled now. Mason may correct me if I'm wrong, but that position is meant to start working on those actions that will accumulate credits that potential projects, including some public projects like fuel management up on above Highland Drive, and a number of those can do. We are going to be doing some remediation on a parcel that's going to pull some eucalyptus trees out, I believe is the first move. That's going to gain us some credits, and those credits would then be available to projects. We have opportunities through financing coming through the county to do some purchase of lands that are privately held that would be brought into the ecological preserve that's think of it again, south of Highland, uphill of Highland, and those would create credits. So we need to get ahead of having credits in the bank that then can be purchased, and away it goes. So we knew that was going to be a lag, and that's what it's going to be.
Do you think that's going to be another year, Bruce? Do you think that's going to
probably see that develop over the next year? Yeah, that's again, expected lag time, a frustration for those seeking permits, but expected lag time. The second question you asked was litigation. Litigation is a fact of life. It's unfortunate. We do very careful work to justify decisions that the board makes. And usually the board makes good decisions. Whether we make good decisions or bad decisions, there's always the chance of litigation. And that's just something we're gonna have to deal with. And so That I can't really speculate on. And the third thing you raise is the real constraining issue. Whatever decision the board makes is going to have to be accepted by the Coastal Commission because they've certified our local coastal program, or LCP. And we went through a long discussion with the Coastal Commission about setting the growth rate when we got this finalized in late 2024 ahead of the 2025 opportunity to build. And we talked to them about Title 19. We talked to them about the state of the basin as reflected in the best available science. The best available science has advanced now with a new model. And again, the main thing the Coastal Commission is going to be looking for is, does your growth rate threaten the sustainability of the basin at the rates that we put forward? And so we'll bring all the information of this conversation from the BMC. We're going to be in conversations with the Coastal Commission soon on this. They're certainly interested. They have a hydrogeologic specialist that will review this. We've got the technical reports. We'll get all that in front of them, and we'll see what they say. I think we'll have a preliminary idea as we move into the actual action of the Board of Supervisors, which will be in December.
Yeah,
And let me just point out, the Coastal Commission will not agree to growth that they perceive threatens a coastal resource of this water supply. So that's a given.
And I see that too. And so as a advisory council, I think I speak for everyone here on the council that we want to avoid situations where we have citizens come through the council with their plans, thinking that they've got a green light, and then all of a sudden they get a red light. And it's awful when that happens, or when they get sued by the sustainable group after they've gotten their permit to move forward. So, it's heartbreaking sometimes to work with people like that. And so I urge the county to think carefully about, how this comes together, that we move slowly, and we don't sort of overpromise, if you will, to some people, because it can be devastating for them. And I know you already know that. So I'm done. Molly, you have another question.
Okay, so my main question was for Dan. So it sounds like what your new model has determined is that we're pumping out about 400 acre-feet per year more than what would be sustainable, or at least going forward. That's the idea, that there's more pumping than what's sustainable. So is there any recommendation on reductions, how we would do that? I don't know if that's something that's necessary, but what are we doing about that disparity of, like, we're pumping over 2,300 acre-feet per year, but you're saying the sustainable yield is about 2,000. So kind of like, what is going to be done to change, about that over pumping? I mean, maybe over pumping is the wrong word, but you're saying we're pumping more now than what the model is saying is going to be sustainable going forward.
Yeah, so sorry if maybe that didn't come across. So no, I mean, as Bruce stated, we're pumping under our sustainable yield currently. Even the new sustainable yield of 2,000 acre-feet per year. Average production in Los Osos, and in hindsight, maybe that would have been a nice thing to have in my presentation, has been 1,830 acre-feet from the period of time from 2019 to 2023.
Okay, so what was
less than 2008.
What was the 2380 you were talking about?
So the 2380 was the old sustainable yield that the BMC had adopted in 2021. And so by adopting a sustainable yield of 2,000 acre feet per year, we lowered the sustainable yield, the estimate of the amount of groundwater that could be pumped on a year-over-year basis without violating our conditions. But the lower sustainable yield is still greater than the average pumping that is occurring within the basin. Now, the BMC, in establishing the stipulated judgment and the basin plan, did establish a target for the BMC to be producing 80% of the sustainable yield. So we are currently, with the new sustainable yield, we're pumping more than the 80% of the sustainable yield, but we are still below the sustainable yield with the current average production.
So you're saying the sustainable, or we're pumping something like 1,800 acre feet per year?
Correct.
And the max would be 2,000 in the current model is saying the max would be 2,000.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then this might be a question more for Bruce, but on the concept of pumping upper aquifer water and treating to remove nitrates, is that something that's in the works, or is that a possible future plan?
It's actually, yes, it is. It's actually something Golden State Water does to a certain extent. I'm working with them on some options that could significantly lower the cost of doing that. It has to do with how you dispose of the brine that's left over after you treat water that has nitrates in it. And there may be a way of making that much, much less of an expense, and thus allowing a whole lot more upper aquifer water to be denitrified. And the key there is that where we're seeing the seawater, Dan put up the cross section of the basin, talks about the lower aquifers. Those are the ones where the seawater intrusion has been seen, and not so much in the upper aquifer, because pumping was largely abandoned in the upper aquifer when it got contaminated with nitrates, and the pumping got shifted to the lower aquifers where it caused a problem. So the upper aquifer remains a resource that's underutilized. It is still got nitrate contamination that we got to deal with, but there are ways of dealing with that, and we should do it. And let me.
So you're saying Golden State is already doing that, like
doing it to a certain extent. I don't know exactly how much they do have a small plant of a capacity that I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Andrea?
Just again, clarification. So the BMC has recommended 0% growth rate for 2026. That's going to the Board of Supervisors. They're going to make some sort of a decision, and that will end up at the Coastal Commission. Is that correct?
Well, the county local coastal program has been judged by the Coastal Commission to be consistent with the Coastal Act, the current one that lays out all of this out. As conditions change, the Coastal Commission will want to see whether the conditions at any particular time still warrant the adoption of all the regulation that's in the LCP, or the local coastal program. So we don't necessarily have to take our decision and get it formally blessed at the Coastal Commission, but Coastal Commission staff will be aware of whatever decision we make. And if they disagree with the decision that the board makes, they certainly have means by which to interact with us on that decision.
And the BMC recommendation or the BMC information is going to the Board of Supervisors in December?
The question of setting the growth rate for 2026 is before the Board of Supervisors in December. Yeah, and
So
that will come with the BMC recommendation, and it'll come with other analyses that the board will consider.
So I would say, Deborah, that would be very important for the residents of Los Osos to understand that the county may or may not go with that recommendation and jeopardize our our water situation. So I think we need to get some information out to our residents.
Madam
Thanks.
Chair, may I just make one point here?
Of course.
There is no decision of the Board of Supervisors that will jeopardize the water supply of the community of Los Osos.
Well,
Again, we talked about, we got to deal with the science here, and we got to deal with the fact that the Coastal Commission is going to peer review and double check that science. And the best available science now says that the average pumping in Los Osos is less than, notably less than, the sustainable yield of the basin. So the question of what impacts growth have to be considered within that setting. Now, I want to make sure that Madam Chair and members of the committee, I'd be happy to sit down with folks in person to work through the technical basis of this. There's been a robust discussion. I know it gets pretty geeky pretty fast, but again, the key phrase in making these determinations about the adequacy of this resource is best available science. And I think I can do a pretty good job of walking you through a number of pieces of information that would be the essence of any discussion as to what should happen. I would point out one other thing, that if the water purveyors who are recommending the 0% growth rate disagree with the county about whether some non-zero growth rate can be sustained, they have the ability to refuse to issue will serve letters for new development. And I am absolutely fine if they choose not to issue a will serve letter because they are the ones that are in control of the water supply. We will respect that. That we can't permit new growth without a will serve letter from the purveyors. So if the purveyors say, nope, you're wrong, 0% is the way to go, then they should logically adopt a moratorium on issuing will serve letters.
Thanks, Bruce. Okay, David, your hand is up.
Yeah, I think John actually had his hand up first, so I'll yield to him, but I do have a question.
Oh, John with the big hand.
Yeah, as big as I can make
There
it.
you are. So sorry, but I don't see everybody on my screen.
That's
So
okay. No,
only the little yellow digital hand shows up.
All
Okay,
right, no,
go
I
for it.
appreciate it. Yeah, the question just for strategy of how to reduce water pumping in the basin. If you remember those numbers, 1,830, 600 of those come from the ag sector. And if you look across the state of California, what are they doing to reduce issues of ag water pumping that have subsided land across the Central Valley and caused other issues related to overpumping? They have a state strategy to fallow land that then would no longer be pumped. And this is something that we haven't talked about here in Los Osos. When you look at all the expenses that you're going to do to treat water, and spending a lot of money on this stuff, hey, your habitat conservation plan could buy a couple of these ag properties just on the east side of town who are growing hay. That's what the water is going to. Why aren't people upset over, people versus more hay that gets sold off to the cattle? We're struggling with this issue when there is a low-hanging fruit opportunity at our doorsteps. So I'm wondering why we never talk about that. How can we make that happen? The state is doing it across California. Why can't we strategize to buy a couple of these farms who may be more than willing to sell out and at an expense to the community that is far less. So I throw that out to the whole group and not for any particular person to comment. But anyway, what do you think of that?
Madam Chair, I can give a brief comment. There
Yeah,
are a couple
great.
of,
That's a new one on me.
well, there are a couple of things to pull apart there. First of all, the habitat to be conserved is outside the area which is farmed right now. The Habitat Conservation Plan identifies those places to be conserved, habitat to be conserved, and it is not the fields. So I mean, I get that's a good idea, but there's another that's a constraint that won't let habitat conservation monies pay for those. The second thing is, I can tell you as a former grower that the conservation of water is a constant issue for irrigated agriculture. Everybody in it tries to use the least amount of water that they can, and so there's a naturally self-limiting amount of water that's used for agriculture. What I can tell you is that the basin plan actively considers offsetting agricultural water use by providing recycled water to be used for that irrigation rather than pumping more groundwater. And that's a piece of the basin plan that hasn't been very actively pursued. There's a possibility of doing that. The actual infrastructure to make that happen, I think, is analyzed in the recycled water report, if I remember, Mr. Nymel. It turns out to be rather expensive, but that's a possibility. And then the final place I'd point us to is that there's another opportunity for water conservation that I think is really opportune, is that within the water purveyor's boundary, about 30%, or I think that amounts to about 300 acre-feet per year, is actually used outside the home. It's actually used for irrigation. And so there are opportunities there to try to reduce outside water use that I think the Basin Management Committee has talked about in general, and another place where we can do things that would be beneficial to the basin.
I would still argue that buying a farm might be cheaper than all of these other solutions, and that should be discussed.
No, it hasn't, but we can certainly add that to the list.
All right. Now, David, I think
Okay,
it's
yeah, thanks. So I had one question for Dan and then a couple of comments. So the first question was, we've been under the sustainable yield. We've been using under the sustainable yield for a number of years, but yet the monitoring report has still shown continued intrusion of salt water. So doesn't that suggest that there's something, either the model, even the new transient model, isn't really accurately, predicting the inflow of salt water, or is that the sustainable yield is actually not correct? Because if we've been pumping under the sustainable yield and we're still getting intrusion, that seems to be an issue.
Yeah, no, it's a valid observation. It's one that we've observed as well. And so, in recent years, the BMC has reduced the sustainable yield twice. In 2021, we reduced it from 2,760 acre-feet to 2,380. And then in 2025, we reduced it from 2,380 to 2,000, mainly because we have, in 2021, we redefined the methodology for calculating sustainable yield. The previous methodology actually allowed sustainable yield to intrude further before stopping. And, the BMC identified that as not as being sustainable. And then the more recent, modification to the sustainable yield estimate was based off of the transient model, the new tool that was developed. So a large picture, though, I would say is, we, as the BMC, use not only the model, but our groundwater monitoring program, as you referenced, which actually provides us the physical data and observations of what's happening within the basin. Now, granted, it's somewhat limited because we only have wells in certain locations where we can, actually physically monitor conditions. But as our understanding of the basin conditions improve, we look to make changes. So if we feel like the physical conditions aren't aligned with what the modeling is telling us, then it causes us to reevaluate, the modeling and the sustainable yields estimates associated with that. I mean, we have seen, significant benefits to basin conditions with respect to certain parameters. In recent years, we've seen water levels in the basin increase even during periods of historic drought. So 2020 through 2022 was the worst 3-year drought we've seen on record, arguably, and we saw water levels within the basin increase during those periods of time. We've seen chloride concentrations, which historically in certain monitoring wells have been on an upward trajectory, indicating seawater intrusion, start to level out and to oscillate. So we're seeing more of a stabilization of those chloride concentrations, indicating that we're making progress, or at least gaining ground in stopping seawater intrusion. Maybe not necessarily reversing, but at least stopping it. Another thing to point out, though, is that battling seawater intrusion is incredibly challenging. I've used the analogy, I don't know how popular it is, but it's somewhat a bit like playing whack-a-mole. You make efforts and changes and management actions to stop seawater intrusion in one portion of the basin. For example, we've been successful in stopping it from intruding in sort of the downtown corridor of the basin, where it had historically intruded to the greatest extents. And that's been achieved through conservation by the community predominantly, but other modifications to wells and pumping patterns to help reduce that. Now, but we do see increasing trends in chloride concentrations in other portions of the basin up by Pasadena Avenue, and so we're constantly evaluating that. The distribution of pumping that was referenced earlier, that is a big part of the strategy that we're looking to utilize. The purveyors will be implementing to reduce the seawater intrusion, but yeah, I mean, we have been, really using not just the modeling, but our physical observations when we're assessing the sustainable conditions of the basin. And when we find that they're out of alignment, we look to adjust them so we can better understand what's happening.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And just my comment was just that if we've been pumping under the sustainable, even under the 2,000 acre feet, then and we're still not seeing the improvement. It's just seems to me the 2,000 acre feet may not actually be the right number.
Well,
we'll see. The other question I had, and opens up a much larger discussion, but when I moved to Los Osos, one of the things that I got my water bill, the first thing that struck me was that it really isn't set to encourage conservation. Basically, if I double my water use, my bill only goes up by about a third because of the high base fee and the relatively low incremental thing. It seems like you could actually get a lot more conservation by changing the rate structure. It seems like you could also get a lot more conservation if you actually sort of allocated water rights to individual and let them trade them. That would be a lot of people probably could be incentivized to use a whole lot less water if they could actually sell their water rights allocation to somebody else who wanted to build. I mean, it seems like it'd probably be hard to do something like that, but it seems like there's a lot you could do with things other than actually increasing the water supply by controlling or managing the demand differently.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for that, David. Tom Cross, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, this is for Bruce. First, I appreciate, Bruce, you saying that the board won't make any decisions that won't negatively impact the Los Osos Basin, and informing us that the water purveyors can refuse to send out will serve letters. That being said, I am curious, presumably the Basin Management Committee was provided with the same best available science that you and county staff will be considering. And I want to know why, with that same information, the Basin Management Committee is so insistent on 0% growth, but it seems that the county and the board seems to be leaning to something beyond 0% growth. Unless I'm completely reading the situation wrong.
First of all, the board isn't leading one way or another. We're going to wait and see what recommendation comes before the board, and again, consider it on the principles that I've outlined here. As to why the other members, the three representatives of the water purveyors, chose to endorse the letter they did, I'd really have to refer you to them. We had a robust discussion on the issues there, and each purveyor, makes their own decision on that. And so I won't speak for them. I can only give you my analysis, and again, I've just given you sort of a superficial summary of some of the issues and the technical issues that underlie that decision on my thinking on that at this time. Again, I abstained to let them voice their opinions to the county.
Thank you very much.
All right. I do not see any more hands. So I think it is time to close this agenda item. And I thank everyone for, sticking in there with what is a very technical report. And special thanks to Dan for coming in and for the slides and the presentation. And Supervisor Gibson, I know how important this is. And something that you're, closely involved with. So I appreciate your input as well. This council obviously needs to stay on top of this as a subject.
Sure.
And so we thank you for the education.
Thank you. It certainly is something this council should stay on top of. Let me reiterate my offer to talk to anybody who's interested in the issues that surround this. And as we head toward the decision in December, again, I'm happy to meet, happy to appear before the council, probably available for the rest of your meetings this year. We can double check that. But if anybody wants to meet in the in between your meetings, again, I think this is a good in-person meeting because there are lots of pages of paper that really tell the story more completely than I can by waving my hands here. So
there you have it.
Available.
Anybody want to participate in that level of deep dive, then you have your opportunity. Again, many thanks for that.
Sure, my pleasure.
So,
Dan has his hand, Deborah, Dan has his hand up.
Something that I'd just like to mention, I don't know if this has come before LOCAC, but sort of an exciting development relative to water in the Los Osos Basin. It's not specifically a BMC initiative, but recently the Los Osos Middle School and Monarch Grove Middle School and the community center were connected to the recycled water system. And so that will allow us to offset largely purveyor lower aquifer pumping, which has the largest influence on seawater intrusion, directly by delivering recycled water from the water recycling facility for those landscape irrigation uses. And so it's an exciting development for our basin. It will reduce the demand that we see, and it should show up in our annual report. And the BMC is, excited and appreciative for the county and leading that initiative and connecting those facilities to our recycled water system.
That's so good, Dan, that you bring that up, because that's potable water that would have gone to watering the sports fields and the recreation areas, and now it's all being supplied by recycled water. Do you know how many acre feet we're talking? I mean, it's
the estimates that I've seen, and they're part of the water recycling planning study, I think it's approximately 35 acre feet per year. So, it's a significant amount of water. I forget, I tried to calculate how many houses that represents.
About 250.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I would like to see Sunnyside School hooked up to recycled water.
Yes.
He's easily enough done, he said in a generic and hypothetical.
All right, well, I'll add that to my project list. Thank you. All right, I think it's time to move on. I appreciate everyone's input. So let's go on to committee reports. Jim Stanfield, do you have our treasurer's report? Oh, where are you?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Beginning balance in the 1st of September, $2,667.47. We took in a whopping 11 cents interest. We spent $10 for PayPal and Zoom. So our ending balance, end of September, $2,657.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, we'll be spending some of that money when it comes to election time next year.
I know.
We'll just hold on to it until then.
I have to pay the post office box. That's the only other
Oh,
thing
that's right.
coming up.
Post office box. Yep, we got that. Okay. So Jim, we have nothing from land use. That's correct.
No, nothing to report. If I just want to say, if anybody wants to join the land use committee, we could use some members. The reason we have nothing to report is we couldn't come up with a quorum. So we're down to only 2 community members. So if you know anybody in the community that would like to be on the land use committee, please let Deborah know, and we can get them before the board to be approved. So, but yeah,
Okay.
we need to get our quorum so we can actually make decisions.
This is a problem, and we, as chair people of our committees, whether it's land use or tree and landscape or transportation, it would be a really good idea for us to beef up our committees because those committee members become potential council members, and we're going to need some council members next year. So, yeah, and that I'm sorry to hear that there was not a quorum at land use, and let's see if we can't do some public outreach on getting more interest, people serving on
Because
committees at the minimum.
if we don't have a quorum, we can't move anything forward to the LOCAC board. So that's why it's so important.
Agreed. Any comments on that from anybody? Okay. Tree and landscape, Andrea, do you have something for us tonight?
Just briefly, we met on November 18th, time to be determined. We're going to do a little bit of replanting at the post office. We've got a couple of trees that aren't doing well, so EcoSlow has refurbished or is going to provide us some new trees. I'll make sure to get the information, so if you're interested in helping, that would be great. Thanks.
Great. Okay. Any questions for Andrea? I don't see any questions. Okay, so Transportation Committee. Last night there was a meeting of the Morro Bay Estuary Climate Resilience Transportation Plan. That's a plan that looks at potential adaptation options for South Bay Boulevard, especially in those low lying areas that typically flood. And it was fascinating. You can go to the website at SLOCOG and learn more about it if you'd like to check into some of the options that were presented there. David Cheney and Andrea Luca were also in attendance. So it was a lot of great information from SLOCOG on that. And then my final thing that I'm going to bring up, and I'm actually going to share it, is the bridge on South Bay Boulevard that's going to be rebuilt. This is a bridge that's not safe. And I found let's see if I can find it now. Hold on. Here it is. There we go. I found this great little clip that I thought I would share because it, no, that's not what I want. Okay, where'd it go? Can you see that? You
Yes.
can? Yay. All right, well, let me fix it. Now we'll play it.
I'm Sophia Villalba, your community reporter in Los Osos. Now, if you've ever driven between Los Osos and Morro Bay, you've crossed this bridge, which is directly behind me near Turi Road. Now, plans are in the works for a full bridge replacement project. I looked into the multi-million-dollar project to find out what it means for you.
Along South Bay Boulevard, it's just a beautiful stretch for people who do like to hike.
Crossing over Los Osos Creek, many people use this portion of South Bay Boulevard.
About 10 to 15,000 vehicles every day cross over the bridge.
But Bridge Program Manager for San Luis Obispo County, Aaron Hope, says it needs to be replaced.
The existing bridge was built in 1966. And as you can imagine, in the 60 years since then, we've learned a lot about seismic forces. And now we understand that this bridge could collapse during a strong earthquake.
Now estimated at around $33 million, project costs have increased over the years.
Over the last decade, the county has seen bridge repair and replacement costs almost double. And that has certainly affected the cost of this bridge.
Hope says they've secured federal funds to pay for most of the work, adding that impacts to drivers and cyclists should be minimal during that time.
The new bridge will be constructed on the inland side immediately next to the existing bridge. So the existing bridge will be open for the entirety of construction.
There will be some upgrades.
The new bridge will have wider 8-foot bike lanes and also a separate 5-foot pedestrian path on the ocean side of the bridge. Expanding the bridge would make it easier to hike on South Bay Boulevard.
County supervisors still need to sign off on the project, and if approved, work is expected to begin next spring and finish in fall of 2027. In Los Osos, Sophia Villalba, KSBY News.
All right.
Hope said the
How fun was that? So I'm here to tell you that the supervisors did approve the contract for this bridge, and construction will be starting soon. It's expected to be finished the end of 2027. So that's great news for Los Osos. And then along with the work that they're discussing for the South Bay climate resilience, we could have an actual pedestrian bike path all the way from Morro Bay to Los Osos that would be safe and would also have a wonderful view of the bay. So stay tuned, but just know that that bridge is going to be replaced, and it will be a great addition to our community. And that's my report from the Transportation Committee. So unless anybody has anything they want to add or any comment they'd like to make, I think we can adjourn.
Sure.
Oh,
Hey, Deborah.
yes.
I'm sorry. I just think we really need to pay attention, really need to pay attention to the water issues and the BMC recommendation and what's happening with our Board of Supervisors. I just want to make sure that they're looking out for our best interests, and I'll just leave it right there. It's extremely important.
Yeah, it's such a complicated subject. And one thing I like to remind myself is that we actually have a lot of water. It's just not necessarily potable water. We can't drink it. It's either nitrate contaminated, as in the upper aquifer, or seawater contaminated in the lower. And so being mindful, as you say, Andrea, about how those things are being handled is really critical. And I think it's a big part of what this council needs to. It's not that we don't have any power, we can't do anything, but we can stay on top of it.
Well, we do have a lot of power because we have the voice, and I think that it can be made very confusing, which I think happened tonight, or it can be made a little simpler. And so I just think we have to be cognizant of that. And then I'm going to leave it alone.
Okay. Jim, I see your hand.
I want to echo what Andrea's saying. It's not complicated. It's basically we have an agency that was created by the courts to oversee our groundwater basin, saying that we need to have 0% growth for next year, and we have the county saying, well, we don't really think that's right, but the county has other vested interests in it. The Basin Management Committee has no vested interest other than we want to make sure there's water. That's their job. And to put it back on the purveyors and say, well, they could just not issue will serve letters. That's the chicken way out, if you ask me. They need to do what's right. So I am concerned that this is like, well, we don't like your science, we like our science.
Yeah.
Well, I will say
Follow the
that
science, but only my science. Don't follow your science.
I will say that I asked the CSD, I was at that BMC meeting, and I asked one of the board members of the CSD I'm sorry, I asked one of the board members of the BMC who represents the CSD, Chuck Cessna, and I said, so are you guys just not going to hand out will serve letters? And he said, that's correct. We are not going to give out will serve letters. I know S&T is already not giving out will serve letters. So the only water purveyor that would give out will serve letters would be Golden State. And they have always said, well, we're under a public utility. We have to give out will serve letters. So we'll see if they change their tune there, because as a publicly traded company, they've always taken the stance that they have to provide a will serve letter. So I don't know if they're going to continue to do that or not. I didn't have an opportunity to ask Mark that question, but yes, to be continued.
Yeah.
So, Tom, I know your hand was up, and then David.
Yeah, hi. Is there any formal action that LOCAC could take in support of or against the BMC's recommendation when it comes time for the county to make a decision at their board meeting? Besides going to public comment and vocalizing our support for the BMC's recommendation.
We could do a letter.
We could do a letter.
Yeah, and being there is probably.
We would have to vote. We would have to vote.
Sure.
We would have to agree to vote to draft a letter, and then it could be submitted to the county. That's what we could do. And then we could go and speak at public comment. We could do that as a LOCAC, and we could also do that as individuals.
Because
and with the LOCAC part, we are only advisory, so we don't have power in this situation.
Right, but as Andrea says, we could write a letter.
Yeah,
and so then we could represent LOCAC.
Yeah.
And we could rally Los Osos. I mean, it's a really important thing, and people just don't find out about it. But it's very important, and we've been underrepresented both at the county and at the Coastal Commission. So I think it's super important.
Yeah.
More to come, Deborah.
Yeah. No, David.
Yeah, and if we just took the position that regardless of what the county decides the growth limit is, that we would follow the BMC recommendations and not endorse any projects that required new water. Then that would go to the planning department, right? And
yeah, but
wouldn't
they
that
would
delay?
Yeah, they'd probably just blow it off, but it's still a message. I mean, if it came to that.
Right.
Well,
because they have to go based on what the county is telling them to do.
Yeah. The county science versus the BMC science. It's ridiculous.
It's well, I've been following this for a while, and it is head snapping sometimes. And my point about it's heartbreaking when people stand up there and go, I just spent $40,000 getting my permit, and now you're telling me that I can't do this, and I've been waiting all these years. So I mean, I really want to avoid situations like that when they come here in good faith and we say, yeah, go ahead. And then they get
I wonder if
sued, they get sued or they get turned off around.
Yeah. And also this issue of the Habitat Conservation Plan program. I wonder, are the county planners telling these individuals who are coming in, to build their little dream house? Are they telling them, well, it's going to be maybe another year or 2 years? I mean, I don't know how much communication there is, but
Yeah,
I was
not very
shocked
much.
when I heard that part.
They were telling them that the credits would be available in the spring, and then the spring came, and now they're saying no, the end of the year. But clearly, they're not even going to be
there's
ready
no
by the
credits.
end of 2025. It's going to be
Yeah.
sometime in 2026. The
Yeah.
program is very slow getting up and running, and the amount of credits that's going to be available at the start, I don't even know if it's significant enough to accommodate the 25 homes that they've allowed for in 2025. So, I just really hope they've already made a mess of it, honestly, in my opinion. It's already a mess, and now it's got to be cleaned up.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah,
there
and
we have
the
it.
Title 19 credits are really hard to get to now. So that, that's the other thing that it's holding everybody up. So there's a lot of hoops they have to jump through too, and it just doesn't seem very genuine.
Yeah. It's very,
Well,
it must be
I'm proud
very
of us for
expensive.
paying attention. Somebody's got to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it might as well be Los Osos.
Might as well. All right,
Are you getting all
everybody.
this, Jim?
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so.
And we're just one little town with all our issues, extreme issues.
This was a great lesson. Thank you. And that's why I hung holy moly.
Yeah, well, you're jumping in with both feet. What can I say?
Well, I mean, we're big on honesty, truth, and simplicity. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, one thing we're very engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for sticking out to the bitter end, and I appreciate all of you.
I'm out
Good
of here.
meeting, Deborah.
All right.
Good
Thank you.
meeting.
Bye-bye.
Good
Thank you
meeting.
very
Thank
much.
you.
See you
Bye,
one
everyone.
later.
Bye-bye.